So I got a question this week that I know a lot of us, think about, and it was, how do you start a painting? And, everybody has a different way, but the way I do it has kind of evolved into this process for me through the years as I've gotten to know myself more, what I, as an artist, who I am, what I want to say with my art, like what matters to me, right? So all of that comes into play. So let me start by sharing that I have several notebooks, like a journal. And these are just like sketchbook journals, and I always paint the cover, right? Because I want it to be very personal. And I start by writing down all my ideas. So let me take you through this one here. This is, I'm currently in landscape-ish sort of abstracts. Love them. I started out that way, I got away from them, now I'm come back and I'm just taking a little deeper dive and figuring out how I can abstract it more or make it more minimal. And being in the desert scapes really fascinate me. And so I'm starting with a general idea of desert scapes, right? And I start with like a main idea. So here I'm starting with a collection beginning in Las Vegas, that's where I am, the different colors, for example, of areas like the Valley of Fire, that's a state park here. It's stunning. The grays, silvers, browns, golden, yellow, sunset colors, even turquoise and greens that are in the rocks here. It's crazy. And then to show the richness and warmth of the landscape and horizon views at a minimal level, using sand from some of the areas, I sprinkle in sometimes natural elements into my work because I enjoy that. And it's really about the connection to nature, the land, and all that. So that's my main idea in the forefront, right? And then what I do, and it helps set the tone, it helps get my mindset in further, is I will just brainstorm a ton of titles. And that's what I have here. You can see there's tons of titles. And I don't use them all. But the ones that I do, I end up putting checks next to so that I know. And it goes all the way on the back, right? And sometimes, this is a different idea, but sometimes I have to go on for several pages. And so from that point, what I start doing is I list out all the colors like I did here that I want to, and I generally set them here, and then on the page previous, this is like so out of order, but sometimes, we're messy in our ideas, and I had to work backwards on an empty page here. So these are all the paint colors that I chose from what I listed here, all the paint colors, and then I just start experimenting, right? I get out play canvases or panels, and I just make a mess with all the colors, and I just stand back and I go, oh, that one's pretty cool. That one, definitely not, but these three over here, I might be able to make them work with this one, and that's how it starts. And when I'm also writing my titles, I try to incorporate some sort of mood or vibe, feeling, ambiance, right, with it, because that's me. And then I have a separate journal, and I know they look very similar paint-wise because I bought them at the same time. So I was just in the same mood and I just painted that, but it works out for me. I know that they go together, and this is my current color recipe book. So let me explain how this works. When I know, like I've worked on some colors that I'm like, wow, I just love this, right? And let me show you an example. Like this color palette here. These are actually desert colors. I know it may look very coastal and oceany to some people, but they're really, like, strangely enough, they're desert colors here because of the turquoise and the rocks and all. And when I come across a color that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna use that color again, I love blue-green, I will start to put all the color recipes and I label them in a notebook. And you can see, like, here's So I have so many blue-greens that I work with that I've just really grown to love. And some are earthy, some are not. And you know, you can't tell from the camera, but when you're in person, you could really see a difference. And I need to know how I can recreate them, that it not be accident, right? And here's another whole set. And it just goes on and on, right? And when I really love them, like this is my newest blue-green, when I really love them, I have to write it down. And it's never an exact science, but if you put down what colors you used, it's always gonna be a blend of that, right? And then you play from there, and that part's not so hard. But if you don't know what you're using, you can't remember, you're gonna get so frustrated. So I do that, and then I come back when I feel, and you can see here, this is not my color one, but this is where I was playing with some greens. And they didn't actually make it into my color recipe journal because I decided not to use them. I just wasn't, I wasn't feeling it. But they are beautiful greens, and I may in the future end up using them. And if I am able to get them to work in a color palette with the mood that I'm going for, then they go into this one. So, you know, it's just, I mean, look, this is just a mess. This is all in my journal. This is what comes out in my head. All sorts of ideas. They did not make it to my color recipe book. And, you know, it just goes on with all these different ideas. And so this notebook is going to be a mess. And here's another set of paintings. This one, Desert Sands, which I started, and I'm, you know, I'm kind of halfway through. I don't know if I'm going to abandon it or, and you know, to do what. But we have to get these out of our head as an artist, because that will allow me to focus on what I'm doing now. So if I want to work on those desert scapes, getting those other ideas out on paper is gonna take the crowded feel out of my mind and give me more space to actually work. And so then I sit down, and after I've jotted those ideas down, I play with the colors on the canvas, and I'm asking myself, okay, what's my intention? And when I'm really serious, I will maybe write the title on the back of a painting. And like, this is an old one, but something like this, I'll write it down. And that way, when I go away and I come back, I go, oh, well, this is just, you know, a base. I go, oh, where was I? What was this one? How do I drop back in that mood? Oh, okay, it's morning shine or whatever, you know, it's not, I'd have to look at my list here, but like, whatever it was, it allows me to go, okay, now let me take a look at it. Does that speak what I'm trying to do? Is it still in alignment with what I want here? And if it's not, I make adjustments. If it is, I just keep going. And here's a shocker. You know, like I'll work on maybe 15, 20 paintings at once, but I maybe get half of them that I'm happy with. So just know that is part of the process. It doesn't mean you're a failure. We have to go through a lot to be able to stand back and evaluate, is this in alignment? Like, does it speak this series, Desertscape? Does it give the ambiance of lost in the sand? Like whatever it is that I want to do. And it's a constant evaluation, right? And so I go through that process, then I come back at the end, and you know what? Sometimes I have to adjust the titles at the end because I'll look at it and go, yeah, lost in the sand, that's okay. But what it really speaks is this other title that I wrote down that is just jumping out at me right now. And so I change it because it makes sense, right? And then I come back and I look at the entire body of work together. And sometimes I take some out, or I will add one in that I didn't think belonged because it was in the 50% that I thought, nope. And it will hit me again. And so, you know, that's how I start and I go through. But the starting, you know, it can frustrate us because there's that moment of, oh, I want to do stuff, but I just don't know what or how to get there. Start by sitting down, writing out your ideas. And sometimes before you even get there, you're going to have to do a brain dump of all the junk that is cluttering your head. That's how you make space. We have to free space up, right, in ourselves to be able to paint, take in stuff, and then put it out. And if your head is all cluttered, it's just not gonna work. So declutter your head, sit down, and brainstorm. What do you want to paint? If you have a clear intention, a goal, a message you want to say with your art, that's gonna make it so much easier to sit down, decide your colors, and figure out how to go about it from there. So next time you start, just slow down and start with those few steps first.